This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. The MisFitNation Show. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the MisFitNation Show. It's our Sunday after dinner show after a long day, couple days of college football championships, and today the NFL doing what they do in their theatrical football. It's been a great weekend. Notre Dame will be playing Indiana in South Bend as the number 7 seed, and hopefully your teams have all made it as well. I know there's a lot of unhappy fans out there thinking their teams deserve it, but play better in the regular season and you'll be fine the next time you go around. Tonight we have a good one. I also have good news. There's no fallen officers since last Sunday, actually. So it's a good week. Keep it up. Keep up doing the right things in your communities and build your community for strength and help your brothers and sisters out in those neighborhoods. Our next guest is a U.S. Navy veteran, a certified master life coach, and NLP practitioner with a specialty in helping men transform their relationships and reignite passion in their marriages. He has a wealth of experience guiding men to understand the psychology of attraction and the keys to reclaiming masculine confidence. So without further ado, let's welcome Paul Bauer to the MisFitNation Show. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Rich, thanks for having me. I'm super pumped up, dude. That intro for the show, it's got me all juiced, man. It's got me juiced up.
Awesome.
I love it.
That's RJ Bird made it for us. A great misfit. He's one of my former soldiers, doing great things in Carolina now in the fitness industry, and he did that for me as a side job for me.
Oh, he did a great job on that, man. I am pumped up tonight. That's great.
Awesome, Paul. So I gave basically a 2-sentence intro on you there. If you don't mind, tell the Misfit Nation a little bit more about you from as far back as you want to go to what got us to this point.
Oh man, yeah, you guys want my Batman origin story? Yeah, let me tell you, I was the kind of guy who was always, a little bit of a ladies' man. Back in high school, pretty easy to get girlfriends. Lost my virginity at 16, that sort of thing. But I was always the kind of guy that was like sniper dating. I would go all in on one girl at a time, and that girl, I was going to marry that girl, like whatever girl it was, right? And that carried into the military. I left for the Navy when I was 18, served on the USS Shiloh for 4 years. So shout out to the Shiloh. I think they're stationed in Japan now. And 2 years into that enlistment, I met my now ex-wife. And you probably know the guys, right? The young, E2s, E3s, they meet the love of their life. Usually it's a stripper. Luckily my ex-wife wasn't a stripper, but but they meet their love of their life, and they go and they're trying to get BAH. They're trying to get insurance for their girl. They're trying to make sure she's well taken care of. That was me. And I knew this girl. I went home on leave, and we basically knew each other in person about 2 months worth before we actually eloped. Now, we had this long distance relationship for longer than that, but in person about 2 months before we eloped. And I remember going to request, because you have to request to get married, So I went around requesting to get married. And I remember my chief pulled me to the side. He's like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? Are you sure you want to do this? Like, you don't have to do this kind of thing. My divo tried to talk me out of it. And I was like, no, I'm in love, man. So I, of course, got married to this girl. And luckily we did stay married for 14 years. We have 2 kids out of that, but 7 years into that relationship, it was miserable, just absolutely miserable. I spent a lot of time sleeping in a different bedroom. I went and I got a cot, and went and slept in my office because I just didn't like being around her. I used to work, like 17-hour days just so I didn't have to go home, that sort of thing. And a lot of guys I think have probably been there. They know what that's like, where they're just like, they know that if they go home, they're just going to get an earful. It's going to be a lot of nonsense. And so I just tried to avoid all that. But I was also the kind of guy who was like, I'm never giving up. This is what's life's supposed to be like. You're supposed to get married, have kids, and be miserable for the rest of your life. That's sort of the paradigm that I had. And so anyway, fast forward to 2013, she convinces me that I should work remotely and we need to move back to Colorado. We were living in San Diego at the time. We moved back here, and this is really just her exit strategy. She's basically plotting to file for divorce. She's waiting until the turn of the year in 2014 when a new alimony law was going to kick in so she can get maximum amount of money out of me. And she files for divorce like January 2nd, because that was the first Monday or something of the new year. And sure enough, I get that brick dropped in my lap. And the thing was, though, I wasn't really concerned about the divorce because I was miserable the whole time. It was almost like a weight lifted off my chest. But I was more concerned about what's going to happen with the kids. And, we fought over that kind of stuff for about a year, and I was 50 pounds overweight. I hadn't dated in 15 years. I didn't know what I was doing. I was floundering on the dating circuit, and I ended up in another relationship about 11 months later with a gal that was sort of took pity on me. She was a little bit of a chubby chaser, and ended up in the first girl that's nice to me, like a lot of guys do. Like the first girl that's nice to you, you go all in, overlook all the red flags. I ended up in this relationship, and I ended up losing all the weight about a year in after getting with her. But 2 years into that relationship, she basically mentally checked out because I fell back on the old patterns that I had when I was married. And she basically started looking at her male orbiters around the 2-year mark. And she finally found a guy about 4 years into that relationship. And she started acting so bad and pushing me away that I ended up breaking up with her. Turns out she was cheating on me at the end, but I find myself back on the dating circuit. This time, this is in 2019. I'm able to get dates, but I can't keep chicks around longer than like 2 or 3 dates. And I'm like, what the hell is going wrong here? Like my 2 biggest relationships failed. And I can't keep women around longer than 3 dates. I'm basically repelling women. What is my problem? So I took a deep dive into understanding the psychology of women, the psychology of attraction. I ended up in a men's group in 2020 called the 3% Man Group on Facebook. And at that time, we were all dating, spinning plates, dating multiple women, and then swapping notes. Like, okay, this worked. This didn't work, right? Like we're all just a bunch of guys getting together. Okay, like this, I learned this strategy from this YouTube video, and this worked, right? Well, out of that group, I started my podcast, the Come On Man podcast. So I've been doing that since 2020, and doing that, I got introduced to a bunch of authors, a bunch of guys that, sort of leading guys in the space. Guys, I don't know if your audience have heard of guys like Rollo Tomasi, Rich Cooper, stuff like that. I started working with those guys, and I started writing my own books, coaching men. And now I'm helping men avoid the problems that I had in my marriage and try to turn things around now that I have that understanding of how relationships work, or they're supposed to work.
Yeah, that's a good Batman story, like you said, your origin story. That's an awesome thing. And when you brought up the young sailor, soldier, Marine that gets that paycheck and finds that stripper, it just brought back so many counseling statements I had to give during my time to soldiers to not try and do that. We had one in Korea who spent his whole paycheck on a juicy girl there, and then thought she was going to marry him, and he wound up going AWOL because he basically lost everything.
Oh my God. Yeah. And women have the tendency to make us so crazy too. Like we do the dumbest crap for women. And if you just keep a level head, you won't do those types of things. But guys let themselves fall in love. They get Twitter pated. They get the one-itis, we call it. And they do the dumbest things, man.
They let the other eye lead them, and that kind of hurts them a little bit.
Yes, that's the key right there.
So, what were some of the biggest, I guess, secrets you were able to pull out of the men's groups and then studying with the two guys that you collaborated with, Cooper and I forget the second guy's name.
Rollo, yeah.
Rollo,
Man, yeah. There's lots of different things. So the big thing that I realized, the reason why I was repelling women when I was out on the dating circuit was because I was being needy. I was being a needy little. Can we cuss on your show? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I was being a needy little bitch, and so the thing was, a lot of guys don't realize this, right? But a lot of guys, they want a relationship. They don't like the dating circuit. Dating's a grind. So any girl that's nice to them, they're like, okay, I got to lock this girl down and let's try to be exclusive so I don't have to do the dating thing anymore. That was me. I was like, I've got to be exclusive with every girl I talk to. Well, that goes against women's evolutionary psychology. You know, most guys think that all women want relationships. And I would say most women do. But if you're the one that's pushing for a relationship, that gives them the ick. Like they don't like, that's weird to them. It's kind of like a bird that wants to fly into the cage. That's awkward. That's weird. Like it doesn't, that doesn't compute. So what I found was that if I just sort of relaxed, facilitated fun and fucked, then women would try to lock me down if they like me, right? If there was a connection there, they really thought like, okay, this is the guy, they need to be the one that locks me down. So I was like, oh, if I just relax and have fun, like women are going to try to lock me down. That makes no sense, but okay, let's try it. And I found that's absolutely the way things work. And women stopped, women wanted to have more than just 3 dates with me. Like they wanted to hang out with me more. And I was like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. When it came to things like things I learned from Rollo's what we refer to as the godfather of Red Pill, the Red Pill movement. I don't know if you've heard of that. Red Pill is a praxeology. It's an interesting concept. A lot of guys like Andrew Tate have taken what Rollo's done and ran with it. Andrew Tate's probably the best marketer out of anybody that's ever come out of the space. And that's why everyone sort of hears the word Red Pill, they Google it, they come up with Andrew Tate. Like Andrew Tate was just a really good marketer, but that's not really what Red Pill was. Like Red Pill is a guy swapping notes. Exactly what I was doing in that men's group, that Facebook group. Guys, it started in the early 2000s of guys on old pickup forums learning like, okay, what works when it comes to picking up women on the street. And then other guys came in later and applied evolutionary psychology to go, why is this working? Why do these tricks that we're doing on women work with them? And so they applied that to try to figure out why it was all happening. And then later, guys who were married started wondering like, why won't my wife fuck me anymore? Right. So that's how married guys started finding their way to the space. Because guys, man, after the 7-year mark, all of a sudden things start fading away. Sex used to be hot and heavy in the beginning. And then they're like, why? I don't understand what's going on. Like I buy her flowers. I do all the love language stuff. None of that's working. Like, why doesn't she want to bang me anymore? So guys started trying to figure this out and they found their way to the Red Pill space. And that created the married Red Pill sort of subgroup of the praxeology. And guys realized things that were told about women like aren't necessarily accurate. And there's things that women say they want, things that women think they want, and then things that women actually respond to. And it works the same way in marriage. And so guys started applying this stuff and turning their marriages around. It's pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating. We always joke in our office that there's this imaginary book that women go by, and they all know what's in this book.
Yeah.
We have no clue. We have to dissect their brain somehow just by looking at them to understand what they really want when they say something. And I mean, I've been married 30 years and I kind of get it now. I'm not an expert. There's no way to be an expert in womanology, but and there might be someone out there, but at least you're getting guys in the right path. And I think I applaud you for that.
Yeah. It's like Married with Children. Do you remember that show? Yeah. He's like, women understand women and they hate each other, like, but Well, that's the big thing. One of the cardinal things that we've learned in this space is that you don't listen to what women say. You watch what they respond to. You pay attention to their actions. Their words make no sense, but their actions never lie. So as long as you just watch their actions, you get a pretty good, sort of temperature of where they're at and what they're doing and what they want. So that's really the big takeaway with women.
Yeah, and I think if you take a step back while you're in these relationships and kind of just read the room, read the woman, read what's happening, like you just said, see their reaction to what you do, you'd be a lot more successful than keep over trying, and like you said, buying the flowers, getting the chocolates, doing this and that, thinking that that's what you're supposed to do, because that's what you've seen in some romantic movie. That's all Hollywooded up to tell you that's what women want. But 90% of women don't want that. They want some of that, but not all of that.
Right. Yeah. That's a big thing too. A lot of guys, especially on the dating circuit, a lot of guys are leading with their wallet. They're trying to get women to like them. So they will take a girl out to a steak dinner, right? If they have a lot of money and they meet a girl online, they'll fly her to Florida or something. They're like, just to impress her. Like, oh, I got to impress this girl. And if you change that mentality around to, no, she's got to earn this stuff. Like, you got to keep dates low investment, like drinks only at first. See if you like her or not. You're the buyer. She's the seller. Change that mentality around. You're going to have much more success with women because you'll be able to weed out the women that are just using you for your money. You'll be able to, there's a guy he wrote a bunch of great books. They're called the Mode 1 series. His name was Alan Roger Curry. And I got to interview him once right before he passed away, actually. And he basically says there's 4 types of women out there. There's rejectors, there's reciprocators, there's manipulative time wasters, and there's wholesome pretenders. So the rejectors and the reciprocators are the best, right? Rejectors, don't waste your time. They tell you straight up, no, I'm not interested. The reciprocators are equally the best because they're as into you, if not more into you than you are, right? So it's like, oh, everything's easy with them. The manipulative time wasters, those are the ones that you have to cut loose quickly. You got to realize that they're wasting your time. On dating apps, a lot of guys are trying to get these girls out on dates and they never have time to go out with them for whatever reason. Or maybe they're asking a girl out at work, and which I think is a terrible idea anyway, but they ask a girl out at work and she never seems to have time to go out. That's a manipulative time waster. She's just wasting your time. She's trying to get validation from you, but she has no interest in actually going out with you. And then there's the wholesome pretenders. These are girls that are you're going to find them a lot in the dating circuit. They're the ones that are like, oh, I don't put out until I'm exclusive. I only put out when I'm married and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, if they're making rules for you, they just don't like you, man. Like they make rules for guys that they're not interested in, and then they break rules for guys that they're absolutely interested in. That's why like these guys are like, oh, this girl, she hasn't had sex with me in a whole year. She must be a good girl. No, that same girl is banging a guy with a throat tattoo in the Waffle House parking lot because he's a bad boy. It's the same girl. There's no such thing as good girls, like good girls are just women that haven't been caught yet, So, so a lot of guys have this sort of Madonna horror complex where they think that the girls that are holding out for them are good girls that are wifey material, and the girls that are putting out, well, they're slutty sleuts and they're not worth their time. It's like they're the same women. They're just, one girl's more interested in you than the other ones. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Very interesting dynamic. We got a question in the chat from at BenBurnt68. You shared how your divorce was both a wake-up call and a relief. What was the most important realization during that period of self-reflection, and how did it help you take ownership of your future relationships?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. So a lot of guys, when they get divorced or they get dumped or whatever, a lot of guys point the finger, right? Oh, she was a bitch. She did all this stuff wrong. She was evil. She tried to take me for all my money. I never had that mentality. I always had the mentality of what could I have done better? Because the big thing that I realized, especially with the divorce and then the breakup after that 4.5 year relationship, was that in both relationships, I'm the common denominator. What can I do better? We never think that we're the problem. We never think that we're the problem, and maybe we aren't the problem. But if you go down the road of looking at what can I do better, what you'll find is that you probably didn't act in the best way possible. And we can't control other people. We can only control how we show up in relationships. So when I work with men, I'm not working with the man and his wife. I'm not doing that. In fact, it doesn't work very well if you do that. It's almost like it's counterintuitive. That's one of the reasons why traditional marriage counseling doesn't really work very well, because when you have traditional marriage counseling, what you have is two parties go to a counselor and they're hoping that the counselor takes their side and gangs up on the other person to make the other person change, but that's not typically what happens. Or if that does happen, because that happened with me, I went and did marriage counseling with my wife, and the marriage counselor kept telling my wife how she could have handled things better. Well, my wife just took that as an insult. And she's like, I don't like this lady. She's not going to help us. And she fired that lady and then ended up filing for divorce anyway, which is like the most common outcome of going to a traditional marriage counselor. So what I do is I work with the men. I work with them directly, and it's almost like a sneak attack. And the reason why it's a sneak attack is because if your wife knows that you're working on yourself, that you're trying to improve the situation, everything now becomes suspect. She's like, wait a second. Are you acting this way because your coach is teaching you this? And now she's going to test you more, and it's going to be more of a challenge. So if you go into it where you don't tell her what you're doing, you just start working on yourself, you'll start seeing that dynamic shift. She's going to not know what's going on, but she's going to like it. She's going to be like, what's going on here? She might test you a little bit just to make sure that this new you that's showing up is congruent, but it's not going to be as much as if she knows that you're trying to actively fix yourself. It's weird how women act, right? But women do this thing we call them shit tests. And it's subconscious. They don't even know that they're doing it, but they do that to make sure that you are congruent with what you're saying, that this is the real you, that you have your shit together. And so women will test men. Most men just don't know how to handle that. And we completely fail them all the time because we react emotionally. We get mad, whatever. But if you can learn how to handle that stuff, she goes, oh, okay. She relaxed more into her feminine. She starts following your lead more. She starts trusting you to lead that relationship. And then that dynamic completely shifts. So, yeah, it's fascinating how it works, and it's really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch guys turn this dynamic around.
To watch the evolution there, to see it go from you doing what you were basically programmed to do from the time you were a young man till you hit that wall, and then turning it around the opposite direction to maybe getting results that actually matter and finding the person that you actually love.
Yeah, definitely. And a big problem with that, and I just released a book on this, but a lot of us have a paradigm around relationships, and we've learned that from our parents. We've learned that by watching our grandparents. There's a really fantastic book out there called No More Mr. Nice Guy by a guy named Dr. Robert Glover. And he estimates that since World War II, we've had several generations of what he calls nice guys. Right? We have these guys that have nice guy syndrome, where we're people pleasers. We're seeking validation from women. We are walking on eggshells. We have the happy wife, happy life paradigm, and none of that is effective in a relationship. And women traditionally want a man that sets the tone and leads a relationship, but most guys don't do that. Most guys, they're looking for their partner, their equal partner in a relationship. And the problem with that paradigm is that when you're looking for, you look at her as your equal, you start deferring to her. You won't make a decision without consulting with your partner first. Well, what happens with that is that you're basically leaving the leadership role up to her. She's not your equal partner. Now she's the decider. And she doesn't want that. Women don't want to make decisions. I mean, ask a woman what she wants to eat for dinner half the time. Like, she doesn't know, right? Ask her what she wants to wear. Right. You're going out to dinner. What is she going to wear? She doesn't know. Like, women don't like making decisions, but by thinking of her as your equal partner, you're making her the decider. She hates that. Now she resents you for it. And now your relationship's in the toilet. Now we have a 50% divorce rate. Right. So my latest book, it's called The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence Psychology Paradigm. It's designed to reprogram that paradigm in men so that they stop thinking of their relationships that way. They start thinking of it as more of, and I'm a Navy guy, more of a captain, executive officer type relationship, right? Where it's like you have your commanding officer and then like the next officer underneath him, right? The commanding officer is ultimately in charge of the mission, no matter what happens, right? The executive officer is there to support the mission, but the executive officer is not at an equal level as the commanding officer is, right? Like, but the executive officer, they're smart. They went to college, probably. They probably have some good ideas. There's no reason not to take the executive officer's recommendations under advisement, but ultimately you're going to do what the captain says. The captain's going to go with what he wants, right? So that's how it's more of an effective mental model for men to have that type of relationship.
Awesome. Another question in the chat here from All Eyes on Me. Your approach focuses on attraction and genuine desire rather than just communication. Can you explain how men can identify and address the root causes of attraction issues in their relationships? I think you've hit some of this, but maybe they jumped in late.
Yeah. So what I like to I like to have guys focus on is this concept of women's hypergamy, right? Women's hypergamous nature. Women typically like to get with guys that they see as above them in some way, right? Hypergamy is kind of a complicated thing, but it's basically women's sexual strategy. It's the name we give to women's sexual strategy. They want a guy who's they look as the alpha, and that's where you get the sexual attraction qualities like a dominant masculine presence, physically fit, a guy that sets the tone and leads, a guy who's decisive, he's bold, that's why, guys that are able to cold approach women like that because it shows like boldness and confidence, like that kind of stuff those are what we call alpha traits. And then they also want a guy that also has beta traits, right? Which are, he's nurturing. He's going to be a good dad. He's a good provider. He makes a lot of money. A lot of guys think that women only care about money. Money is the beta side of hypergamy. It's not sexually attractive, but they like that, right? So when you optimize, when you try to strategize around a woman's hypergamy, what you're doing is you're optimizing your alpha traits so that you're more sexually attractive. And then you still add a little bit of beta traits on there that she still needs in that relationship. And that's how you're going to keep that relationship going long-term, but optimizing. So sort of having an 80-20 split of 80% alpha traits will keep you from having a dead bedroom because, that's really important for men. Like men like to fuck, right? Like let's not beat around the bush. Like men need sex. Like we need air and water, or like we need it. And so a lot of guys pretend like they don't want that, because that's their nice guy syndrome coming out, but they need that. And so when they don't get it, now all of a sudden they start getting cranky. They start doing all sorts of stuff like what we call covert contracts. They start, mowing the lawn more or doing dishes more to try to, hey, look, I'm a good boy. Can I have sex now? And that does nothing for attractiveness. And then when I say I focus on that over communication, the problem is a lot of people think that communication is the key to a healthy relationship. And it's not, because what people tend to do with communication is they try to negotiate that attractiveness. They try to negotiate genuine desire. So let's say your wife isn't having sex with you anymore. And every time you go to initiate sex, she rejects you, or she has a headache or whatever excuse she comes up with. Oh, the kids have stressed me out today. I'm not feeling it. Right. So now you communicate, well, I need this. This is something I need in a relationship. And you're trying to communicate that. That comes across like weakness. That comes across like you're begging for sex, right? Which is just further eroding that attraction. So communication is not the key in that circumstance, right? What communication is the key for is conflict resolution. So if you guys are fighting, having good communication skills can resolve that without causing a problem. And if you can do that in a certain way, that actually boosts your attractiveness in her eyes. If you can communicate in a way that is from a position of leadership, that will boost her attraction. So that attraction, that initial genuine desire is really what is the key to the healthy relationship. If you can keep her attracted, you're not going to have the dead bedroom problem. So it's not a communication issue. It's an attraction issue.
Outstanding. And the name there, the name of the person asking the question, he must be, or he or she must be a Tupac fan with All Eyes on Me. So thank you for that question. Great question right there. And as you're answering that question, another one came in about your book, actually, which we really didn't talk a lot about, but I'm guessing they researched you.
Okay.
From Khan on Google Chat. In your book, The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence, you discuss the psychology and mindset shifts men need to adopt. What's one practical step a man can take today to start reclaiming his confidence and leadership?
One practical step a man can take today to start reclaiming his confidence and leadership, I would say to shift the mindset of your wife as your equal partner, right? Another thing guys can stop doing, which kills attraction, is stop thinking of your wife or your girlfriend as your best friend. That when I say that, like, a lot of guys get pissed. They're like, "What? No, she is my best friend, bro. Like, you know, we do all sorts of things together." The problem with the paradigm of having your wife as your best friend is you start treating her like a friend. And when you start treating her like a friend and not like a lover, you end up in the friend zone in your own relationship. She starts looking at you as a friend too. And women typically don't want to bang their friends. You know, they hang out, they have coffee with their friends. They have deep emotional connections with their friends, you know, but they don't have sex with their friends, right? They have sex with their lovers. So if guys can just get rid of that idea that she's your best friend and that she's your partner, that by itself will be, like, I would say, the first step men need to do to start changing that dynamic in their relationship.
Awesome. And in those relationships, as you feel like it's going down that spiral, like for you, when you wound up staying in the office and working all those hours a day, when you get to that point, is it too late to come back and save it? Or is there steps you can take at that point to revitalize and get back into the fight?
No, there's absolutely steps you can start taking. So the big thing that guys tend to do when they're at that point is their wife is constantly bitching and nagging, right? They're just bitching and nagging. You just don't want to hear it anymore. You're tired of it. She's criticizing. Everything you do sucks. You feel like it's like can't win theater, I like to call it, right? It's can't win theater. No matter what you do, it's not good enough. Guys start feeling that way. Well, the problem is that when your wife is at that point, it's almost like a warning signal. You know, it means if you've gotten to that point, it means you've been consistently failing her shit test over time, and she no longer trusts your ability to lead. One of the things I learned from Dr. Robert Glover, he has another book called Dating Essentials for Men that I life-changing book. He says that when you let your wife get into the driver's seat of the relationship, she'll never trust you to drive again. That's not necessarily true, but you have to basically earn that respect back, right? Respect is not something that is given. It's something that's earned, and you've lost her respect, and a woman can't love a man that she doesn't respect. So the way you start changing that dynamic around is by becoming the man you were probably around the beginning of the relationship, where you were more of a decisive person. You start taking back some of those things. A lot of guys, and I did this in my relationship, they sort of let their woman take control of the finances. They basically, you know, hey, take control over this. I'm the one that's going out and working every day, and they leave all decision making up to her. You stop doing that. You stop leaving all decisions up to her. You start making decisions. And then when she does test you, you recognize it for what it is. It's just a shit test or, you know, some kind of test. And then you learn how to handle those things. There's different ways of handling them. The two best ways of handling a shit test is what we call agree and amplify, or act indifferent. So as long as you don't emotionally react to her tests, you're gonna pass them better. You know, you sort of don't take what she says seriously. If she is criticizing you for something that is valid, then there's ways to communicate that from a position of leadership, where you basically listen to her, you understand where she's coming from, you get clarity on, just basically let her get it off her chest, and you don't react to it. You just listen to her. You're like, okay, let me understand this. Me doing this and this makes you feel this way. Is that right? That sort of thing. You validate her feelings, but you don't defend yourself. Because if you have to defend yourself and explain what you're doing or rationalize what you're doing, you're basically making her the judge of why you do anything. And that puts her at a one above position. But if you don't explain yourself and you just go, okay, let me understand your feelings on this. Okay, that seems valid or whatever. And then you come up with an action plan. Okay, well, after you said all that, well, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'll do this, right? You do that from a position of leadership. She's going to start respecting you more, and that's where the dynamic's going to start changing, because she's going to start trusting your leadership. And as long as you actually take the reins back in the relationship and start that leading, that's when she's going to start getting that attraction back. So it's not too late. I think when I think it's kind of too late is when you guys are talking to the attorneys. I get guys that DM me on Instagram and stuff, and they're already like 6 months separated, and I'm like, man, if you have just come to me like 6 months ago, we could have probably turned this dynamic around. But you waited too long. And a lot of guys, I would say that only 3% of guys are going to take action to fix it. Most guys are just going to go, I'm just resolved to be miserable and jerk off to porn. And I don't care if she's not banging me anymore. She's just a nagging bitch. So I'm going to work 17-hour days. And they're going to let that relationship die. And that's why, and then they're going to complain about it. They're going to say, well, 80% of women file for divorce, or 80% of divorces are filed by women. Well, yeah, because you didn't do shit about it, man. So yeah, I wouldn't let it get to the attorney phase. I would say if you start seeing her bitching at you a lot and you're at the point where you don't want to come home from work, that's the time to call me.
Do you have a copy of your book there with you? You can hold up for the audience.
I do. Yeah. Here it is. It's called The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence Psychology Paradigm. You can get it on Amazon and Audible. So if you're more of an Audible listener, I have it an audio version of it as well.
Awesome. I put that link in the chat right now, and it's also on the show notes as well. So if you are looking at the show notes, you can click on it there. In the chat right now is all of Paul's social media stuff. So his Instagram, his Facebook, and his YouTube for his show. Come on, man. Tell us a little bit more about Come On, Man. And you've been on since 2020. So how many episodes do you have, and what's your reach there now?
Man, I have over 400 episodes on the show. I've been doing this since 2020. I started off doing it, like I said, I started out of the Facebook group that I was in, the men's group, the 3% man group. And it originally started with me interviewing other guys in the group, just trying to figure out like, hey, how did you end up here? And everybody's story was the same. They all ended up in some kind of crappy breakup, and they were all back on the dating circuit, and they were all trying to figure out how to get better at dating. And then the big problem with the guys in the 3% man group, and I love them. I call them my 3% brothers, but they almost all of them, especially in 2020, and the guys who were really active, that were swapping notes, that were doing really good with women, they all ended up in relationships, and almost all of them after a year or two ended up back in the group getting dumped, because what they ended up doing was they got really good at it. They studied the material, but once they got into the relationship, they do what a lot of guys do, which is they get complacent. They think they've reached the finish line. They think they don't have to do anything anymore, and that the relationship's just going to take care of itself. And so they fall back on their old, what we call beta programming, and they fuck it up. Right. And so they end up back in the group going, I should have read the books more. I should have kept studying this stuff. And I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to study this shit until I fucking die, because I never want to end up in that position again. Like, I want to be the guy that's always studying this stuff. There's a guy that I talk about in my latest book called Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor, if you've ever seen the movie The Secret, he was featured in the movie The Secret. He read this book called Think and Grow Rich for 60 plus years. It just over and over again. And that's one of the things I invite guys to do with my Psychology Paradigm book, is to read it on repeat at least 10 to 15 times, because that repetition is going to change your paradigm of relationships. And that's what I ended up doing. I've read some of these books on repeat And it's completely changed my paradigm on relationships and how to maintain a healthy relationship. And I met my current girlfriend in going on 5 years ago. And we've had the best relationship I've ever had. It's effortless. And one of the things about her, she might actually be in the chat right now. I can't see the chat though, but the thing about her is that she listens to every episode of the podcast, and she takes what I say and then she applies it to a female perspective, and then goes out and reads her own books, and then she does her own investment. So she's constantly working on the relationship. I'm constantly working on the relationship, and we sort of meet in the middle, and everything just seems easy, you know? But I started the podcast with guys from the group. And then I at the time I was dating a gal. I call her Marine Corps chick. She happened to be in the Marines, and she would put out the dumbest fucking videos on TikTok, right? Just made no sense, right? But they would blow up and they go viral. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if I could start promoting my podcast on TikTok. So I started putting out videos on TikTok. And then my podcast started getting bigger from there. I started interviewing, I started branching out from the group, started interviewing other guys in the space, other authors. And I've grown my podcast to about 24,000 followers on YouTube, which has been pretty good. I got invited on a men's podcast panel on Saturdays called Rule Zero by one of those guys, Rollo Tomasi. He wrote the Rational Male book series. And yeah, from there, it's just sort of blown up. I have probably a good group of dudes in the chat there, my beer club guys.
Yeah.
So I have a men's group that I run. It's on Telegram, and there's over 50 guys in that group. Those are my beer club brothers, and so they're probably all in the chat supporting the stream tonight.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of beer club references and emojis. So I've been trying to put them up on the screen so you can see them.
Oh yeah. Those guys are great too. And I call it beer club because, you know, the way I look at it is like guys getting together over beers, talking about guy shit, right? It's a men's group. And one of the things I learned from Dr. Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, is that men need to connect with other men. Men need a brotherhood. You know, we need a tribe. That's one of the best things about the military was it was like a tribe of brothers. Even if we didn't get along in birthing, you know, we were pink bellying each other on our birthdays and shit. We still loved each other and we had each other's backs, you know, you know, having that tribe was beneficial. And so I've sort of tried to recreate that with my men's group, Beer Club.
That's outstanding. Hopefully you have shirts and you guys can hang around with either the shirts or maybe a hoodie that says Beer Club on it. Men only. Good. Have a good night.
Oh yeah. We got merch. You got to have merch, man. You know,
you got to live in the merchosphere.
That's right.
So Paul, this has been great chatting with you. It's quick 46 minutes and it's been awesome. You've given a lot of tips. I always ask my guests to give the MisFit Nation 3 things they can do tomorrow to make things better as a human and to be successful. I'm going to throw that at you. It doesn't have to be what we talked about tonight. It might be something in other areas of life as well. What 3 things can the MisFit Nation do starting tomorrow to make their life more successful?
Oh, wow. 3 things. One thing that a lot of guys don't realize is that they have full control over their life. They have absolute control to make life happen for them. And so I would recommend tomorrow you figure out what you want. What do you want in this world, right? It could be, what do you want in relationships? What do you want with career? Whatever. What do you want? Sit down and figure that out. So that's number 1. Then 2, I want you to set a big goal for yourself, right? And I want you to set a goal so big, it'll blow your mind if it happened, right? So that's number 2. And then I want you to sit down and write out 3 sentences, like with I am statements, as if you've already achieved that goal, right? So let's say that you let's tie it back to relationships. So let's say you want to be in a relationship that's where it's just effortless and she loves you and she bangs you every day. So you can say like, I am the leader of my relationship. I am setting the tone and leading every day. I am in control of my relationship success. right? So like those 3 things. And I want you to read those things every day, 5 times in the morning and 5 times at night, because that by itself will reprogram you for success. And if you can program your subconscious mind to believe that's true, your subconscious mind's a supercomputer. It's going to figure out how to make it true for you. And that's really what my book is all about. It's all about showing you different ways of doing that and how to reprogram that subconscious, because our subconscious creates our actions, right? Our actions are caused by our thoughts. Those actions create reactions. Those reactions cause our results in life. So if you're not getting the results you want in life, you got to start up here, reprogram that subconscious mind to change your actions. So get the book, The Essential Skills of Masculine Presence. Get it on Amazon or Audible. And then if any of you guys are having problems in your relationship right now, book a free call with me. Go to call.fixedbedrooms.com and tell me what's going on in your relationship. If I can help you, I'll show you what that looks like. If I can't, I'll at least point you in the right direction.
You said call.fixedbedrooms.com?
Fixedbedrooms.com.
Fixedbedrooms. Putting that in the chat now. Awesome. Paul, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you to the Beer Club for jumping on. If you guys want to come over to the Misfit Nation and subscribe and share ours, we'd love it. And if you want to join us again, we're on live Tuesdays and Thursdays as well as Sundays. So, Paul, thank you for coming on and taking some of your Sunday night to hang out with us. I'm sure you can do better things to hang out with us, but we had a blast with you tonight.
Man, I had a lot of fun. I love doing this stuff, Rich. It's one of those things where, you know, podcasting, it's like I would do it for free. In fact, I did it for free for a long time.
and it takes a lot of effort too. People don't understand that, but it's fun. You get to meet a lot of awesome people.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love it.
And again, thank you, and have a great night, Paul.
All right, you too, Rich.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation Show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.